What we really do is link organic knowledge, and we want to link farmers to scientists and scientists to farmers, and extension people might be in the middle of all that, but we find that the scientists can learn as much from the farmers as the farmers are learning from the scientists. There has to be a connection and a communication between all the stakeholders in organic agriculture. And we see the Organic Agriculture Centre of Canada being the facilitator of all those connections.
Lecture today, I base everything on what the organic farmers want me to work on, so I hold focus groups every year and ask their opinion about how's my research going, what else do you want us to look at, and I would say in the last 6 years there's been a focus on reducing tillage in organic systems.
Yeah, I would add that maybe whenever farmers they are thinking about organic crop production, yes, they should manage or balance the nutrients. They should use integrated use of management practices and the amendments available. And at the same time, I like to urge to producers, anytime they are using any amendments, they should test on their own farm how good it is working. They can have their own step trials, their own little experiments on their farm. Then they can be their own researchers. Some things works well on some farms, some things works well on the other farms. So they can do their own testing. I would, because sometimes these new amendments they can be costly, and they are the ones they should test first properly on their farm, and then find out if it's economical to use.
And also, by the way, about the money, if you pay money, you're going to ask for control of your project. And that is a good thing. I really believe that. But what you get relevant projects, you get early adoption, or immediate adoption in some cases, of whatever you develop. And the third thing is you expand the quantity, quality, and the extent of organic agriculture. Another we is cherry growers. About 15 years ago, the cherry growers in our area just on their own set up a cherry growers association. And initially that was all conventional growers because you could not grow cherries organically in our area because of a pest called cherry fruit fly. Nobody will eat a cherry that when you bite into it, it's a bag of excrement with a white grub inside. And that's what happens if you don't control cherry fruit fly. Well, through the Cherry Growers Association, my partner and I belong to that since the beginning, what we do there, we pay a cent a pound, voluntary, totally voluntary. Not all the cherry growers belong to it, doesn't matter. But with that cent a pound, we do research. Sometimes we do that in collaboration with the scientists at some one research station. A couple of times we've hired retired researchers, and sometimes we hire private researchers. And through that, we were able to do the efficacy testing, registration, and the work that we needed to get GF 120 and trust, the no-SID registered in Canada. So all of a sudden, we had a organic cherry industry. We sort of went like from a few backyard early cherries that nobody would ever want to eat to quite a thriving organic cherry industry. We have lots of problems with introduced pests. And back in the early 2000s, we started replanting using rootstock from Europe, and we inadvertently brought in a really bad pest that bored into the trunks of apple trees and would kill them. And by the time we realized we had this problem, in some orchards over 100% of the trees were infested and had up to 20 to 30 larvae per tree. And our trees showed it. They were dying. Graft unions were breaking off. And we were quite desperate. Everybody's saying, well, we should all go plant nectarines. But anyway, what we did instead, our local packing house, which is a dedicated organic packing house, had a meeting with its growers. Well, first of all, we went through all the powers that be, and Agriculture Canada very graciously said, we will put this down as a priority for next year. It was 2005. Because they have to budget ahead. You know, they just don't have pots of money sitting around for emergencies. And so they did that, but we, in the meantime, we took up a little collection in our packing house and went out and started doing some experiments. And then we found, we did have something that the PMRA had said, oh, this will work, but we already knew that wasn't happening. But we did these trials in 3 orchards where we compared what we were doing. We took the only pesticide that was available for organics and hoped like hell that it would work. Developed a whole new technique of applying it. At the end of the fall, I can still remember going with trepidation out to this orchard and checking, oh my God, 95% control. It was wonderful. But we'd had to put on 6 sprays to do that, and you know, that just wasn't practical. So what we did, back to our packing house, which packs about 95% of all the organic fruit in British Columbia, and we all agreed to pay $1 a bin. And we used that money to hire a grad student to do research to see if we could get less sprays, better timing, etc. Meanwhile, the testing did go on for testing pesticides, which were actually all for the conventional industry. But that was okay, we were already on the way, and by the time those first pesticides got registered for the conventional industry, we had our problem, not perfect, but under control. And in the meantime, we found out this wasn't just a problem for organic growers. This was all across the board. The conventional growers had a problem just as bad as we did. They started putting in money, we started doing more innovative things, and life went on.
One of my observations is that you know, having worked with conventional farmers trying to move them towards cover crops or move them a little bit, lots of resistance. And so I think I was in a sort of a mindset that I go to farms and we do some work and we talk to farmers and they would have that same response, and that just really never happened with organic farmers. I found that their level of analysis of what they were seeing was deeper. And that actually surprised me, not to take anything away from their potential, but I just hadn't had a lot of those experiences. And I've seen that time and again, and I'm really impressed with that.
Most of it, I'm kind of selfish. I find it very beneficial to me. Secondary consideration is maybe it's beneficial to people as a whole in organic. So I found it beneficial both ways, but I guess my primary interest is how is it going to benefit me? And anytime I've done that, I've found it benefited me. Even if the test didn't work, I know what didn't work, which is a benefit. You know things that aren't right and don't work, so you know you're going to have to try something different the next time.
So can you give us an example where the science that was done on your farm has changed any of your management practices or your thinking? Or?
Every time I've done something, it's changed my practices and changed my thinking. There hasn't been a time when it hasn't. Every time there's been a change. Either it reinforced something that I was kind of thinking was good, and yes, it really is good, and I know for sure, or it's, yep, no, we're going to have to do something different than that. So, no, it's changed every time.
But through that process, working with OACC, we did a research needs assessment. My position was a research and extension associate. So my job was basically to draw that line between researchers and farmers. Finding out what farmers wanted from researchers, and we did that through survey and workshops and stuff, and then vice versa, trying to get our research results out to farmers. And it's through that I actually met some of these farmers who are on our panel. When we sent out our survey, I got a long handwritten letter from Dan's parents. I don't remember if it was your dad or your mom that actually wrote it, but it was signed from both of them, and explaining about what they would like to see us do, encouraging us to travel around and learn from other places, and so that was the beginning of a relationship there. So then when we needed a site for some on-farm research in 2008, I think, I knew who to call because I had that connection.
But there wasn't really a whole lot there for us for information. And so then when the researchers here, well, when we heard that they were doing some, I mean, we were more than willing to have them come down and do some experiments on our farm. Especially at the scale that you do, at a smaller scale, but also more varieties and more different situations. And seeing it on your farm, you know, what responds and what works pretty good. And so it was, you know, great just having these guys down. And so they always want to come do some more. I like learning, I like watching what you're doing and stuff like that. So yeah, we're talking about these farms that's supposed to be in a hurry, but we're talking for a few hours trying to get some information out of them. But it's always been very good, very interesting.
Okay, in my position here is really as a research leader. So and training graduate students. So one of my priorities is to have the graduate students interact with real farmers. I think that's really important, as Haroon outlined. So that's a goal that I have, and it's a strategic goal. One of the other things that makes it important for me to go and visit with farmers is I want to know what they're thinking, what their problems are, what they're trying, you know, what's come around from either Acres, USA, or some other source that's got them interested. And I'll just sort of take that on board and visit with them. Like, you know, John Finney's here. I've been, you know, walking around his farm, and I remember many things about that visit. I've been working with lots of farmers, even we also do some on-farm research in Central America and in Asia, and farmers are, you know, facing the same problems in different parts of the world. So it's really important as a researcher to find out what's constraining them, what are their opportunities, and then I can take that information and help develop a research program for that. For their problems, because that's my job, and I find that really interesting. I enjoy it. You can get some of this information from surveys, and Stats Canada and other places have FAO. They have lots of survey data, but you don't get to meet the people, and you need some of that survey stuff. But I love the getting to know not only the guys, you know, in the back, you know, when you're leaning up against a pickup truck, but also I like to, you know, to get to know the families and can see what kind of situation farmers are in. They all face you know, circumstances of being in a family, and that's important for us to see. So those are some of my thoughts.
We started looking at organic farming toward the end of the 1990s, and at that time there was very little research that we had access to anyway. Some of the most readily research available was out of the States. Particularly, we got a lot of stuff out of Wisconsin. We're primarily focused on potatoes and onions, and that kind of horticulture focus isn't easy generally in the prairies, so maybe we're compounded by our focus. But a lot has changed in the ensuing 10, 12 years, and we're getting a lot more stuff locally. And one of the highlights has been the program out of the U of M with Martens and his students. Last 5 years we've done some on-farm trialing with them, and also Mario Tenu. On green manures. We've done some interaction with the university, we've done our own extension. We've given quite a number of tours to students coming from the U of M and showed them what's happening on our farm. A lot of the stuff that we've done sort of originally is taking things like varieties that we found elsewhere and testing them out on organic land and seeing if they are appropriate for organic production. A lot of varieties that are common now don't necessarily perform well under organic conditions, and this is especially true with potatoes. And so some of the older varieties have actually been pretty interesting to use, and they do have some advantages. But we're always looking for new genetics, and sort of an ongoing focus is the variety part.
First time I would meet a farmer and say, you know, I heard you might be interested in this kind of work, and they'll say, no, I'm not really interested in research, but I have all these issues I'd like to talk about, and this problem and that problem, and before you know it, you've got about 12 research projects. And while, they say, I've only got half an hour, I'm really busy, and you're there 3 hours later listening to all of the history of the firm, and you finally get a word in, and so you certainly develop an interesting relationship with the firms. But I also find their attitude towards their farm is what's so fantastic, and that's why I love working with organic farms. Their attitude towards their soil, towards everything moving on the farm, and their appreciation of it is unbelievable. And they may or may not come back to talking about yields, but they're absolutely fascinated by the farms. And I tend to think of them as sort of ecologists who happen to be farmers as well. But anyway, that's a short version of it.
And you can just tell us briefly what your role in on-farm research has been, and try to make it interesting and entertaining.
For the most part, I've been trying to move our home garden to what could be a certifiable organic form of production. I really enjoy the organic practices, and I see a lot of benefit to those.
The consumers are becoming very interested in organically produced food. Then there is a demand. So then there are farmers. They are interested in growing crops organically, and farmers are growing crops. Then that means they cannot add fertilizer, so soils will be deficient in the nutrients, and I have seen it, and because of that I have to answer some of those questions to producers as a researcher. So that's why I became interested based on the information, and also personally I like to also interested in so that we can minimize the amount of chemicals.
And I guess the purpose of this is to get the thinking going and give us an international flavor which we can benefit from when we're dreaming up stuff for Canada.
I don't think we need another long-term experiment comparing conventional with organic agriculture, but we need long-term experiments where we compare different cropping systems within organic agriculture.
So, Earth and I would talk about, we have two friends in organic. We have diversity and recycling. And if you don't remember anything else about what I am going to say, I think those are really important words. Diversity and recycling, those are two of our friends.
Okay, this goes a little bit against what I really believe in telling people my research ideas. But I figure we're in sort of a different competitive world. You guys probably aren't applying for you're not on my panels, and I'm not able to apply, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and maybe I'll be sad, but I have groups, a couple of thoughts, and basically I'm not going to try to paint some great big picture. I'm going to tell you what the 5 proposals I would write are, and de facto, those are of course the things that we should be working on.
Okay, my name is Eric Gallandt. I'm a weed ecologist at the University of Maine. I work in agriculture, in organic farming, because my interest in helping. That's bad. Let me think.
No, you take your time. So you were at the party yesterday at the Festival des Voyageurs.
Yeah.
Did you liked it?
Oh, I had a great time. It was very fun. Yeah, that was excellent.
Thank you, everybody.
and safe travels home.